So, you ever wonder what it's like to be a human candle? Some memories may be better left repressed. You see, this summer, I had my 20-year high school reunion, and I'd seen some folks who I frankly hadn't really thought about or seen in the last couple decades. But it's really interesting to hear how you may in fact be remembered. Back in high school, I was a bit more of a prankster. I liked to do all kinds of just stupid shit for a joke. And I also was a smoker then. I smoked cigarettes. And I remember there was this one day, back in chorus class, as one of my classmates had refreshed my memory earlier this year, and I had thought it was funny to flick my bick lighter next to a classmate's ear. This is a moment I, in turn, would never forget, even though it was deep down in these repressed memories. This was not just any classmate, by the way. Lindsay was the homecoming queen. She was actually the first black homecoming queen in my high school's history. She also was probably the meanest singer, the meanest vocalist that you have ever heard and that will ever grace the hallways of our high school. Lindsay was a force from a very, very musical family, and not one of the people who you really would want to piss off. So upon flicking my bick, which, by the way, I was probably a good half a foot away from her, not next to her ear, I was in total surprise when, in fact, the flame jumped from my lighter onto her hair. Yeah, I'm not fucking kidding. That was the same response everybody who saw what happened heard. And I tried to downplay it. I immediately patted it out, and I'm just like, don't make a scene, don't make a scene, don't be pissed. She was pissed. She was fucking pissed, rightfully so. But in my mind, I'm thinking in like my 17-year-old head, like, oh shit, I am gonna get in so much trouble for this. So I tried to downplay it, and frankly, over time, our friendship, we were also friends, our friendship mended. She was okay, her hair grew back. It took some time. Her hair doesn't grow as fast as mine. But again, that was something that I kind of tucked back until it had resurfaced this year. And interestingly enough, I'm now in high school for the first time since then in 20 years. I teach a spoken word class at Asbury Park High School. And just a few weeks ago, I was handing out storytelling cards to the students because I'm trying to teach them that poetry is just another form of storytelling. So I believe in leading by example. Everyone got their cards, everyone got their prompts, so I went first. I pulled the card, burned. You can't make this shit up, right? Talk about a sign from the universe I'm supposed to be here tonight. I got the burn card. I did not tell my students what happened with Lindsay back in high school. In fact, that thought hadn't even popped up in my mind. My first burn story was a more personal note, and I decided to walk them through about how I was in Manhattan one day representing the Armenian community of Philadelphia at a banquet, and there was a cocktail reception before the banquet. So we were in this like swanky lounge in Manhattan, and there was a long bench along the wall, and I sat down. It was just like this, nice tea light candles along the wall, and I sat down, getting ready to order a drink. I see a waitress walk by and had one of those trays that seemed to be like, at Chili's, like the skillet one, and I'm sitting down and I'm hearing the sizzle, and I'm like, ooh, fajitas. I wanted some fajitas. And next thing you know, I felt like I was in a freaking Onyx video from the 90s, like back when you had like the old stomp down scenes when everybody's kicking and hitting at the camera. And I'd never really understood or felt like what it was like to black out until that moment when 5 strangers rushed toward my head, smacking me. Then this angel came through and swooped me up and took me into one of the 2 small restrooms they had. She said, I'm gonna check you for burns. What? I didn't understand until she said that, what had happened. That was not fajitas that I heard sizzling in my ear. It was my own hair. You see, the same shit that happened to, not quite the same, but the same concept that happened to Lindsay several years prior, flames can jump. So I didn't quite think about that, the fact that the flame jumped because Lindsay had 10 pounds of Afro sheen in her hair. Well, guess what? I got a lot of hair, right? And I had product in the hair, and that was the same thing that had happened. By the grace of God, I did not receive any burns to my skin, but I also then had bangs for the first time since 3rd grade. and I was able to leave without having to go to the hospital. I think it was more traumatic than anything. And I went back to the hotel room, only to wake up the next morning to have more hair singed and on the pillow. It took 2 weeks of me washing my hair every day to get that smell out of my hair, to get the cringed, broken pieces from falling out. And it wasn't until yesterday, after all of these years, that I connected the dots from what happened with Lindsay and what happened with me. So I don't know if this is some sort of karmic cleansing that needs to happen, right? That what happened to her then happened to me. I don't know if this is my call to have to publicly apologize to Lindsay for what happened back at Manasquan High School. But I am sorry, Lindsay, and I'll tell you all that the sight, that the smell, that the taste, the touch, my senses will never, ever, ever forget these memories that have been burned into my mind forever. Thank you.